Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stumbled through the dense jungle of Kepler 442b. His standard-issue boots squelched in the muddy ground, and his breathing came in short gasps. The oxygen levels here were lower than Earth, and every step felt like running uphill. "Control, this is Rookie 7. He spoke into his comm device, trying to keep his voice steady. "I've lost contact with the main team. My navigation system is down, and I'm approximately 3 kilometers from the landing site." Static crackled back at him. The dense canopy above blocked most signals, and the strange electromagnetic fields of this planet made communication spotty at best. Marcus was alone, and he knew it. He had been part of the Galactic Survey Corps for exactly 43 days. Fresh out of training, eager to prove himself, and now completely lost on an alien world that the veterans called the Graveyard. Not because humans died here, but because this was where alien expeditions came to disappear. The trees around him were massive, easily 200 meters tall, with bark that seemed to shimmer and shift colors in the filtered sunlight. Strange sounds echoed through the forest, clicks, whistles, and deep rumbles that made his skin crawl. According to the briefing files, over 17 different alien species had attempted to establish research stations on this planet. None had succeeded. All had withdrawn within weeks, leaving behind only empty structures and cryptic warning messages. Marcus checked his scanner again. The device showed multiple life signs moving through the jungle, but they were unlike anything in the xenobiology databases. The readings were massive. Some creatures registered as being the size of Earth elephants, others even larger. But what worried him most was their behavior pattern. They seemed to be following him. A branch snapped behind him. Marcus spun around, his plasma rifle ready, but saw nothing except the shifting shadows between the trees. His heart pounded so hard he was sure any predator within a kilometer could hear it. The Corps had given him basic combat training, but they had warned him that humans were considered the least dangerous species in known space. Their strength was average, their speed was mediocre, and their technology was centuries behind the major galactic powers. Why did they even send humans here? He muttered to himself, remembering the words of Commander Vex, a reptilian officer from the Zephyrian Empire. Your species should stick to farming and simple manufacturing. Leave exploration to those who were built for it. The comment had stung because it was mostly true. Humans had only joined the galactic community 50 years ago, and they were still considered newcomers. Weak, primitive newcomers who were barely tolerated by the more advanced civilizations. The only reason humanity had been allowed into the Survey Corps at all was because they needed bodies for dangerous missions that other species considered beneath them. Another sound made Marcus freeze. This time it was a deep resonating call that seemed to come from multiple directions at once. The scanner showed at least 6 large creatures converging on his position. He could see them now through the undergrowth, massive shapes moving with surprising grace through the jungle. They looked like a cross between a bear and a lizard. Each one easily 3 meters tall and covered in armored scales that reflected the jungle light like mirrors. Marcus raised his rifle, but his hands were shaking. The training had never prepared him for this. The weapons instructor had focused on hitting stationary targets and dealing with mechanical malfunctions. Nobody had taught him how to face down alien predators that looked like they could tear through a steel wall. One of the creatures stepped into a clearing about 30 meters away. Its head was massive, with rows of teeth that gleamed like ivory daggers. 6 eyes arranged in 2 rows focused on Marcus with an intelligence that chilled him to the bone. This was not just a dumb animal, it was a thinking, calculating predator that had probably hunted dozens of alien species across the galaxy. The creature opened its mouth and let out a roar that shook the ground beneath Marcus's feet. The sound was so loud that his comm device squealed with feedback, and the scanner's display flickered and went dark. Other roars answered from different directions, and Marcus realized he was completely surrounded. He thought about his family back on Earth, about his younger sister who had laughed when he told her he was joining the galactic military. "Marcus the space soldier," she had teased. "Try not to get eaten by any monsters out there." It had been a joke then. Now it might be his epitaph. The lead creature began moving toward him, each footstep making the ground tremble. Its scales shifted color from green to deep red, and Marcus remembered reading somewhere that this usually meant aggression in reptilian species. Behind him he could hear branches breaking as the other predators closed in. Marcus's finger found the trigger of his plasma rifle. He had 16 shots before he would need to reload. and 6 creatures that each looked like they could survive a direct hit from a tank. The math was not encouraging. Well, he whispered to himself, at least nobody will be surprised when the rookie gets himself killed on his first real mission. The creature was 15 meters away now, and Marcus could smell its breath, hot and metallic like burning copper. Its 6 eyes never left his face, and he had the unsettling feeling that it was studying him, trying to understand what kind of prey it had cornered. Marcus steadied his rifle and aimed for the largest cluster of eyes. If he was going to die here, at least he would go down fighting. The creature seemed to sense his resolve and paused, tilting its massive head to one side as if puzzled by something. For a moment, human and alien predators stared at each other across the jungle clearing, both waiting to see who would make the first move in what would surely be Marcus's final battle. Marcus pulled the trigger. The plasma bolt screamed through the air and struck the lead creature square in the center of its head. The energy discharge lit up the jungle like a lightning strike, and the smell of ozone filled the air. For a moment, Marcus thought he had actually killed it. Then the creature shook its head like a dog getting out of water, and Marcus saw that the plasma had barely scorched its armored scales. The creature looked down at the small burn mark on its forehead, then back at Marcus. If he didn't know better, he would have sworn it looked annoyed. "Oh, come on," Marcus muttered, firing again. This shot hit the creature in the chest with the same pathetic result. The plasma that could punch through a meter of steel barely left a mark on the alien's natural armor. The creature let out what sounded almost like a sigh and began walking toward him again. Behind him, Marcus could hear the other predators moving closer. Branches crashed and the ground shook with their footsteps. He was about to become the universe's most disappointing snack. Marcus turned and ran. He crashed through the undergrowth like a madman, branches whipping at his face and vines tangling around his legs. His rifle bounced against his back as he stumbled over roots and splashed through muddy streams. Behind him, he could hear the creatures following, but strangely, they didn't seem to be in any hurry. "This is just great," he panted as he vaulted over a fallen log. "They're probably just playing with their food." He burst out of the tree line and found himself at the edge of a deep canyon. Far below, a river rushed through jagged rocks, and the opposite side was at least 50 meters away. There was no way across and no way down that wouldn't end with him splattered on the rocks. Marcus spun around as the creatures emerged from the jungle. All 6 of them now, moving in a coordinated formation that spoke of pack intelligence. They had herded him to this dead end deliberately. These weren't just predators, they were strategic hunters. The lead creature approached slowly, almost casually. Its scales had shifted to a deep purple color now, and those 6 eyes studied Marcus with what looked like curiosity. When it was about 10 meters away, it stopped and sat back on its haunches like a giant dog. Marcus raised his rifle again, knowing it was useless, but unable to think of anything else to do. "Stay back," he shouted, though he had no idea if the creature could understand him. "I'm warning you." The creature tilted its head and made a sound that was almost musical, a series of melodic chimes that seemed completely at odds with its terrifying appearance. The other creatures responded with similar sounds, and Marcus realized they were communicating. Then something impossible happened. The creature closest to Marcus opened its mouth and spoke. "Why do you run, small one?" The voice was deep and resonant, like rocks grinding together, but the words were clearly in Standard Galactic, the common language used by all spacefaring civilizations. Marcus nearly dropped his rifle. You can talk?" "Of course we can talk," said another creature, this one with silver-streaked scales. "The question is, why don't you fight properly? Your kind are supposed to be the terror of the galaxy, yet you run like prey." "Terror of the galaxy?" Marcus stared at them in confusion. "Are you talking about humans? We're not terror of anything. We're barely even allowed in the Galactic Survey Corps." The creatures exchanged glances, their scales shifting through various colors. The lead creature's eyes narrowed. "You are human, yes? From the 3rd planet of the Sol system?" "That's right," Marcus said, still holding his rifle but no longer pointing it at them. "And you are?" "I am HFY, prime hunter of the Kethmori pack," the lead creature said. "We have hunted across 17 systems, bringing down prey that would make your nightmares seem pleasant. We came to this world because the Galactic Council said it was too dangerous for civilized species." "Too dangerous?" Marcus looked around at the peaceful jungle. "It seems pretty calm to me." HFY's scales shifted to bright orange, which Marcus was starting to think might be their version of laughter. "Calm? Young human, this planet is where apex predators come to test themselves. Only the deadliest hunters in known space dare to set foot here. The Vorthak Reapers, the Crystalline Swarm, the Shadow Packs of Xerion, all have sent their finest killers to claim this world. And? Marcus asked. And they all fled within days, said the silver-scaled creature. Something on this planet terrified them so badly that some never hunted again. The few survivors spoke only of shadows that moved without form, and a presence that made their prey instincts scream in terror. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. So what are you doing here? We came to find this ultimate predator, Thexai said. To face it and prove that the Kethmori fear nothing. We have spent 3 weeks searching every corner of this continent, tracking every possible sign. Did you find anything? The creatures fell silent, their scales shifting to muted gray colors. Finally, Thexai spoke again. We found tracks. Footprints in the mud near the old Zephyrian research station. Small prints, no claws, no obvious adaptations for killing. They looked almost familiar. Marcus glanced down at his own boots, then back at the creatures. A terrible suspicion was beginning to form in his mind. What did these tracks look like exactly? Thexai gestured with one massive claw toward Marcus's feet. Exactly like those. The silence stretched between them as the implications sank in. Marcus looked at the 6 apex predators surrounding him, each one capable of tearing apart a battle tank, and tried to process what they were telling him. You're saying, he began slowly, that humans are the reason all the other alien hunters fled this planet? It appears so, Thexai said, his voice respectful for the first time. Tell me, young warrior, how many of your pack are on this world? Marcus thought about the survey team. 12 humans total, scattered across the planet in small groups. 12, he said. The creature's scales went completely white, which Marcus was pretty sure meant fear. 12, Thexai repeated. 12 humans, and the greatest killers in the galaxy fled from your presence. Marcus lowered his rifle completely. This was either the most elaborate prank in galactic history, or he had just discovered something that was about to change everything humans thought they knew about their place in the universe. I think, he said carefully, we need to have a longer conversation. Thexai led Marcus to their camp, which was hidden in a cave system about a kilometer from the canyon. The other Kethmori followed at a respectful distance, their scales still showing pale colors that Marcus was learning meant nervousness. The cave was enormous, clearly natural but modified with advanced technology. Holographic displays showed detailed maps of the planet, tracking systems, and what looked like psychological profiles of various alien species. Marcus whistled softly. These creatures had equipment that made human military gear look like stone tools. Sit, Thexai said, gesturing to a flat rock near the center of the cave. We must understand what we are dealing with. Marcus sat, still clutching his rifle, though he was beginning to realize how ridiculous it was. I still don't understand why you think humans are some kind of super predators. We're considered the weakest species in galactic space. Most aliens barely tolerate us. The silver-scaled creature, who had introduced herself as Vexara, activated one of the holographic displays. Images began floating in the air between them. Surveillance footage, news reports, and what looked like military records. Let us examine the evidence, Vexara said. 3 months ago, the Darkwing Consortium attempted to establish a hunting preserve on this planet. They brought their finest killers, creatures that have successfully hunted in the vacuum of space and survived in the cores of active volcanoes. The display showed sleek, black creatures that looked like mechanical nightmares crossed with giant spiders. Each one was the size of a small spacecraft with weapons that seemed to be grafted directly onto their bodies. They lasted 4 days, Thexai continued. The expedition leader's final transmission spoke of small bipeds that moved with unnatural silence, and eyes that showed no fear, only cold calculation. The entire force retreated to orbit and refused to return. But that doesn't mean it was humans, Marcus protested. There could be other species here. Could be, agreed another Kethmori, this one with deep blue scales. Except for this. The display shifted to show a recording from what looked like a security camera. The image was grainy and distorted, but Marcus could clearly see a figure in a Survey Corps uniform walking calmly through what appeared to be an alien base. The figure was small compared to the towering alien architecture, and moved with the casual confidence of someone taking a stroll through a park. This was taken at the abandoned Zerion research station, Thexai explained. 2 weeks ago. Notice how the human shows no signs of stress or fear, despite being surrounded by the remnants of equipment designed to contain apex predators. Marcus leaned forward, studying the image. That looks like Rodriguez from Team 3, but so what? He's just walking around. Just walking around, Vexara repeated, her scales shifting to yellow. In a facility that was abandoned after the Zerion Shadow Pack fled in terror. A facility that our sensors indicate still contains at least 3 distinct types of aggressive alien fauna. The display changed again, showing bio readings and threat assessments. Marcus's eyes widened as he read the data. The facility was apparently home to creatures that registered as extremely dangerous on every scale the aliens used. You're Rodriguez, Thexai said softly. Walked through that facility for 47 minutes. Our long-range sensors detected him entering areas where even we would require full battle armor. He was wearing only your standard uniform. Maybe he didn't know there were dangerous animals in there, Marcus suggested. Perhaps, Thexai said, but that raises an even more disturbing question. If humans are so oblivious to danger that they walk casually through death traps, how did your species survive long enough to develop space travel? Marcus opened his mouth to answer, then closed it again. It was a good question. Humans did have a reputation for being reckless, but surely that wasn't the same as being terrifying. Vexara manipulated the display again. Let us examine human behavior patterns from a predator's perspective. Your species routinely engages in activities that serve no survival purpose but involve significant risk of death. You call them sports and recreation. Images flashed through the air. Humans bungee jumping, rock climbing without ropes, swimming with sharks, racing vehicles at deadly speeds. Marcus had never thought about it before, but from an outside perspective, humans did seem to have a death wish. You actively seek out dangerous situations for entertainment, the blue-scaled Kethamori noted. This is not the behavior of prey animals. This is the behavior of apex predators who have become so dominant that they must create artificial challenges to stimulate their hunting instincts. That's actually kind of disturbing when you put it that way, Marcus admitted. It gets worse, Thexai said. Your species' response to fear is not flight or submission. It is anger. When threatened, humans become more dangerous, not less. This is documented in thousands of galactic incident reports. Marcus thought about his own reaction when the Kethamori had surrounded him. He had been scared, yes, but underneath the fear had been a growing anger. He had been ready to go down fighting, even against impossible odds. Furthermore, Vexara continued, humans show remarkable persistence when hunting. Other species hunt for food or territory. Humans hunt for concepts, justice, revenge, principle. They will pursue prey across vast distances and time periods until they achieve their goal. The display showed news footage of human police officers tracking criminals across multiple star systems, human soldiers continuing missions despite being vastly outnumbered, human explorers pressing on into unknown dangers that would send other species running. You're Detective Morrison, Thexara said, highlighting one particular story. Spent 17 years hunting a criminal across 12 systems. 17 years. Most predators would abandon such a pursuit after 17 days. Marcus felt his worldview shifting. Everything the alien said was true, but he had never thought about human behavior from this perspective. To him, persistence was a virtue, risk-taking was normal, and getting angry when threatened just made sense. But to alien minds that valued caution and survival above all else, these traits must seem absolutely terrifying. There is more, Thexai said. The way humans socialize is particularly disturbing to other species. You form large groups, but instead of establishing dominance hierarchies, you cooperate as equals. This means that encountering one human often means facing an entire pack of coordinated predators. We call them teams, Marcus said weakly. Teams, Thexai repeated. Groups of apex predators working in perfect coordination toward a common goal. Do you understand why this terrifies other species? Most predators are solitary, or at most hunt in small family groups. The idea of dozens or hundreds of apex predators coordinating their actions is beyond most aliens' comprehension. Marcus looked around at the 6 Kethamori, who were apparently considered among the deadliest hunters in the galaxy, and tried to imagine facing them as a coordinated group. The thought was genuinely frightening. So you're saying, he began slowly, That other aliens see humans as some kind of unstoppable super predators? Not some kind, Vexara corrected. The ultimate super predators. Think about it from our perspective. You are persistence hunters with pack coordination, no natural fear response, and a tendency to become more dangerous when threatened. You actively seek out danger for entertainment, and you never give up once you start hunting something. Marcus sat in silence, trying to process everything he had learned. No wonder other aliens seemed nervous around humans. No wonder the Galactic Council kept humanity confined to minor roles in galactic society. They weren't trying to keep humans down. They were trying to keep everyone else safe from humanity. But I'm just a rookie, he finally said. I've been in space for 43 days. I got lost in a jungle and nearly got eaten by you guys. Thexhi's scales shifted to deep purple again. Young human, you were lost, alone, facing 6 apex predators with inadequate weapons, and your response was to attack us. When that failed, you ran not in panic but in a calculated retreat to find better defensive ground. When cornered, you prepared to fight to the death despite knowing you could not win. So, Thexhi said softly, in 43 days you have become exactly what we feared you were, and you do not even realize it. Marcus spent the night in the Kethmori camp, though sleep came in short, restless intervals. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw himself through alien perspectives, a terrifying predator who just happened to look harmless. By morning, his worldview had been completely turned upside down. We must return you to your pack, Thexhi announced as the first rays of sunlight filtered into the cave. But first there is something you must see. The Kethmori led him deeper into the cave system, through passages carved with symbols that seemed to shift and change when Marcus wasn't looking directly at them. The air grew colder as they descended, and strange lights began to appear in the walls, not electric, but some kind of bioluminescent organisms that pulsed in rhythm with their footsteps. This planet has been used as a testing ground for over 3,000 years, Vexara explained as they walked. Every species that considers itself an apex predator eventually comes here to prove their worth. The caves are filled with records of their attempts. They emerged into a massive underground chamber that took Marcus's breath away. The walls were covered in what looked like a museum of galactic predators, holographic displays, preserved specimens, weapons, and armor from dozens of alien species. Some of the creatures in the displays were so alien that Marcus couldn't even figure out which end was supposed to be the head. Behold, Thexhi said with something that might have been pride, the Hall of Hunters. Every species represented here has successfully claimed this world for at least one full cycle. They are the elite, the apex of their respective evolutionary trees. Marcus walked through the displays, reading the information panels. The Void Stalkers of Kepler-69, who hunted by manipulating gravity itself. The Phase Wraiths of the Andromeda Sector, who could slip between dimensions. The Iron Fang Collective. Cybernetic wolves the size of aircraft carriers. Each display showed creatures that seemed impossible, like nightmares made flesh and armed with advanced technology. How many species are represented here? Marcus asked. 43, Vexara replied. 43 different apex predator species have successfully held this world long enough to leave their mark. It is the ultimate achievement in our culture. To stand among the Hall of Hunters is to be recognized as one of the deadliest beings in the galaxy. Marcus stopped in front of a display that showed creatures that looked like they were made of liquid metal, constantly shifting between different shapes. According to the panel, they could mimic any form they encountered and had no fixed weaknesses. They had held the planet for 2 full years before finally leaving. What made them go? Marcus asked. Unknown, Thexhi admitted. The metamorphs left no records of why they abandoned their claim. Their final transmission was simply, "The experiment is concluded. We withdraw." They continued through the hall until they reached the very end, where a new section was under construction. Holographic projectors were set up, but they showed only static. Empty armor stands waited for specimens that had never arrived. This section was prepared for us, Thexhi said. The Kethmori Pack. We came here to join the Hall of Hunters to prove ourselves worthy of standing alongside the greatest predators in galactic history. But, Marcus prompted. But we discovered something that changed everything, Vexara said. She activated one of the working displays and Marcus saw surveillance footage from orbit. The images showed various alien ships arriving at the planet over the past several months, only to leave within days or weeks. Every species that has come to this world in the past 6 months has fled, HFY explained. Not just failed to claim it, fled in genuine terror. The last 3 expeditions didn't even land before turning around and leaving the system entirely. Marcus studied the footage. He could see the patterns now. Ships arriving with confident, aggressive approach vectors, only to suddenly accelerate away from the planet as if something were chasing them. When did this start? He asked. Approximately 78 days ago, Vexara said. 3 days after the first human survey team arrived. Marcus felt his stomach drop. You're saying that just having humans on the planet scared away all the other predators? Not just scared, HFY corrected. Terrified. We monitored some of the fleeing transmissions. The saber pack of Rigel sent a message that translated roughly to, "The prey has become the hunter. We are no longer safe here." The crystalline swarm's final transmission was even more disturbing. "They do not fear us. How can anything not fear us?" Marcus sank onto a nearby bench, his legs suddenly feeling weak. "This is insane. We're not scary. We're barely holding our own in galactic society. Most alien species treat us like annoying children. Because they do not understand what you truly are," Vexara said. "Your species evolved on a death world, Marcus. Your planet is classified as a Class 12 hazard zone, unsuitable for colonization by any known species except humans." "Earth isn't that dangerous," Marcus protested. "Sure, there are hurricanes and earthquakes and stuff, but your planet has apex predators in every biome," HFY interrupted. "Land, sea, air, underground, everywhere. Most worlds have 1, perhaps 2 apex predator species. Earth has dozens, and humans evolved not just to survive among them, but to become the dominant species." The alien pulled up a holographic display of Earth's biosphere. Marcus had never seen it laid out this way before. A detailed analysis of predator-prey relationships across the entire planet. When viewed from an outsider's perspective, Earth looked like a nightmare world designed specifically to produce the ultimate killer species. "Your ancestors didn't just survive the ice ages," Vexara continued. "They thrived during them. They learned to hunt creatures 10 times their size using nothing but teamwork and primitive weapons. They turned the entire planet's ecosystem to their advantage. And then," HFY added, "when they had conquered their home world completely, they looked at the stars and decided to hunt there too." Marcus stared at the display, watching simulations of early human hunting parties taking down mammoths, cave bears, and saber-toothed tigers. To an alien perspective, it must have looked like a species of unstoppable killing machines systematically eliminating all competition. "But we're not like that anymore," he said weakly. "We're civilized. We have art and music and philosophy." "Yes," Vexara agreed, "which makes you even more terrifying. A mindless predator is predictable. But predators with art, music, and philosophy? Predators who kill not from hunger or instinct, but from complex reasoning and emotional drives? That is beyond most species' comprehension." HFY activated another display, this one showing human cultural exports. Movies, books, video games. Marcus watched alien analysts trying to understand human entertainment. Their confusion and growing horror evident in their reports. "Your entertainment is particularly disturbing to other species," HFY noted. "You create fictional scenarios where humans face impossible odds, suffer terrible losses, and still refuse to give up. Other species create entertainment where the smart choice is to retreat and survive. Humans create entertainment where the hero's greatest moment is choosing to fight despite certain death." Marcus thought about every action movie he had ever watched. Every war story, every superhero comic. The aliens were right. Human entertainment was obsessed with the idea of never giving up, never backing down and fighting against impossible odds. "Your species," Vexara said quietly, "has spent its entire existence teaching itself that surrender is not an option. You have systematically eliminated every survival instinct that tells you to retreat when faced with superior force. From an evolutionary standpoint, this should have driven you extinct." "But it didn't," Marcus said, understanding dawning on him. "No," HFY confirmed. "Instead, it made you into something that no other species knows how to handle. Predators who cannot be intimidated, cannot be reasoned with, and will not stop hunting until they achieve their goal." Marcus looked around the Hall of Hunters one more time, seeing it with new eyes. All these legendary predators. These apex species that had dominated star systems and terrorized entire civilizations. and they had all fled from the presence of a dozen humans with basic survey equipment. "We need to get back to my team," he said finally. "They need to know about this." "Indeed," Thexai agreed, "because if our analysis is correct, the implications extend far beyond this planet. Every alien species in the galaxy is going to have to reconsider their relationship with humanity." As they prepared to leave the Hall of Hunters, Marcus couldn't help but wonder what his fellow humans were going to think when they learned they were the monsters that other monsters had nightmares about. The journey back to the human base camp took most of the day, with Marcus riding on Thexai's back through terrain that would have taken him hours to cross on foot. The other Kethmori moved through the jungle like shadows, their massive forms somehow nearly silent despite their size. As they traveled, Marcus learned more about the aliens' perspective on humanity. Every human trait that seemed normal to him was apparently terrifying to other species. The way humans made eye contact during conversation, for instance, was seen as a dominance display by most aliens. Human smiling, showing teeth, was interpreted as a threat gesture. Even human laughter was considered disturbing. The idea of making noise for no survival-related reason baffled most galactic civilizations. "Your people," Vexara explained, as they paused beside a stream, "are the only species we know that deliberately seeks out members of other species for social interaction. Most civilizations avoid unnecessary contact with aliens. Humans actively pursue it." "We call it friendship," Marcus said. "Exactly," Thexai rumbled. "You form pack bonds with members of other species. From an evolutionary standpoint, this should be impossible. It suggests that humans are so confident in their ability to handle threats that they see other species not as competitors or dangers, but as potential resources." Marcus was beginning to understand why Commander Vex had seemed so nervous during their briefings. What Marcus had interpreted as arrogance was actually fear. The reptilian officer hadn't been dismissive of human capabilities. He had been trying to convince himself that humans weren't as dangerous as they appeared. They reached the edge of the human base camp, just as the sun was setting. Marcus could see the lights of the prefabricated shelters through the trees, and hear the familiar sounds of human voices calling to each other as the evening shift change took place. It looked and sounded completely ordinary, just a small group of humans going about their routine tasks. "Stay here," Marcus told the Kethmori. "Let me talk to them first. If 6 apex predators suddenly show up at our camp, someone might do something stupid." "Like what?" Thexai asked. Marcus paused. "Like try to fight you." The aliens' scales all shifted to pale colors. "All of them?" Vexara asked nervously. "Probably," Marcus admitted. "If they thought you were threatening me, the whole team would come running with whatever weapons they could find." Thexai and his pack exchanged glances. 12 humans, the pack leader muttered, "working in coordination, with the element of surprise." "We'll wait here," Vexara said quickly. Marcus walked into the camp alone, still trying to figure out how to explain what he had learned. How do you tell people they're the galactic equivalent of movie monsters? "Chen," a voice called out. "Where the hell have you been?" Sergeant Rodriguez jogged over, looking more annoyed than worried. He was a compact man with graying hair and scars that spoke of too many close calls in too many dangerous places. "You missed your check-in. The lieutenant was about to send out a search party." "Sorry, Sarge," Marcus said. "I got lost and ran into some locals." "Locals?" Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. "The briefing said this planet was uninhabited." "Not uninhabited. Just avoided." Marcus looked around the camp, seeing his teammates with new eyes. Thompson was field stripping his rifle while telling jokes to anyone who would listen. Park was arguing with someone over the comm about supply schedules. Williams was reading a book while cleaning alien mud off her boots. All of them looked so normal, so human. And according to the Kethmori, all of them were terrifying apex predators. "Sarge," Marcus said carefully, "what would you do if 6 giant alien creatures showed up at the edge of camp right now?" Rodriguez didn't hesitate. "Evaluate the threat. Level, establish a defensive perimeter, and if they looked hostile, eliminate them before they could hurt anyone on the team. Even if they were bigger than tanks and covered in armor?" "Especially then," Rodriguez said with a shrug. Size just makes them easier targets. Why? Marcus realized that Rodriguez wasn't boasting or trying to sound tough. He was stating what he considered an obvious tactical assessment. The idea that the aliens might be too dangerous to fight simply hadn't occurred to him. No reason, Marcus said. Just curious about standard procedures. Lieutenant Stevens emerged from the command shelter, looking tired. She was young for her rank, with the kind of competence that came from being promoted quickly due to skill rather than time in service. Chen, good, you're back. Report. Marcus came to attention. Ma'am, I need to brief you on contact with local wildlife. It's complicated. How complicated? Marcus glanced toward the tree line, where he knew 6 of the galaxy's deadliest predators were waiting nervously. Very complicated, ma'am. We need to have a team meeting. 20 minutes later, the entire survey team was gathered in the main shelter. Marcus stood at the front of the room, still not entirely sure how to begin. 12 pairs of human eyes looked at him expectantly, eyes that he now realized made most aliens deeply uncomfortable. Okay, he began. This is going to sound insane, but I need everyone to stay calm and listen to the whole story before reacting. He told them everything. The encounter with the Kethmori, the revelation about human behavior patterns, the empty alien research stations, the Hall of Hunters. He watched his teammates' faces as he explained how the mere presence of humans had apparently driven every other predator species away from the planet. When he finished, the shelter was silent for a long moment. Finally, Thompson spoke up. So you're saying we're accidentally the scariest thing in the galaxy? Apparently, Marcus confirmed. Cool, Thompson said, then went back to cleaning his rifle. Dr. Sarah Chen, the team's xenobiologist, looked fascinated. This explains so much about our interactions with other species. The nervous behaviors, the formal protocols, the way they always seem to be watching for sudden movements. It also explains why we keep getting assigned to the most dangerous missions, Rodriguez added. Command isn't trying to get us killed. They're using us as their secret weapon. Lieutenant Stevens stood up. Where are these Kethmori now? Just outside the camp, Marcus said. They want to meet with all of us, but they're nervous. Nervous? Stevens looked confused. About meeting us? Ma'am, according to them, we're the most terrifying predators in known space. They're afraid that if they make the wrong move, we'll hunt them across the galaxy until we kill them all. Stevens stared at him for a moment, then started laughing. It wasn't nervous laughter. It was the genuine amusement of someone who had just heard something absurd. That's ridiculous. We're explorers, not killers. Are we? Dr. Chen asked quietly. Think about it from their perspective. We volunteered to come to a planet where 43 different apex predator species have staked territorial claims. We brought minimal defensive equipment and just walked around like we owned the place. Because we're doing scientific research, Stevens protested, which involves systematically cataloging everything on the planet, learning its weaknesses, and mapping its resources, Chen continued. From an outsider's perspective, that could look like reconnaissance for an invasion. Marcus watched the realization dawn on their faces. They were seeing themselves through alien eyes, and the picture wasn't flattering. A species that had conquered the deadliest planet in known space, then spread out across the galaxy to study and catalog everything they encountered. Always smiling, always making friends, always asking questions about how things worked and what weaknesses they might have. Holy shit, William said quietly. We really are the bad guys, aren't we? Not bad guys, Marcus corrected. Just terrifying. There's a difference. Lieutenant Stevens rubbed her temples. Okay, assuming all this is true, what do we do about it? I think, Marcus said, we need to have a very careful conversation with the Kethmori. Because if they're right about how other species see us, then humanity's entire relationship with the galactic community is about to change. Stevens nodded slowly. Bring them in. But Chen, I want you to record everything. If we really are sitting on the biggest diplomatic revelation in human history, we need to document it properly. As Marcus headed back toward the tree line to get the Kethmori, he couldn't help but smile. Even faced with the possibility that they were galactic apex predators, the human's first instinct was to gather more information. Somehow, he thought the aliens would find that both very human and very terrifying. The meeting between humans and Kethmori was unlike anything Marcus could have imagined. The 6 massive predators approached the human camp with visible caution, their scales shifting through nervous color patterns as 12 humans watched them with calm, professional interest. "By all the hunting grounds," Vexara whispered as they entered the camp. "Look how they position themselves. Perfect sight lines, overlapping fields of fire, multiple escape routes covered, and they make it look casual." Marcus glanced around and realized the alien was right. Without any obvious coordination, his teammates had naturally arranged themselves to cover every angle of approach. Thompson was cleaning his rifle in a position that gave him a clear shot at the main path. Williams was organizing equipment near the armory. Rodriguez was by the communications array. It looked random, but it was actually a textbook defensive formation. "They're not even aware they're doing it," Thexhai observed. "Instinctive pack tactics." Lieutenant Stevens stepped forward and extended her hand in the universal human gesture of greeting. "I'm Lieutenant Stevens, commanding officer of this expedition. Marcus tells me you have some interesting theories about my species." Thexhai stared at the outstretched hand for several seconds. Marcus realized that to alien eyes, a human showing their empty palm while making direct eye contact was probably a complex social display that they didn't fully understand. "I am Thexhai, prime hunter of the Kethmori pack," the alien finally replied, carefully touching Stevens's hand with one massive claw. "Your reputation precedes you, though we suspect you do not know what that reputation truly is." Dr. Chen set up her recording equipment, while the aliens settled into positions around the camp's central fire pit. Marcus noticed that even sitting down, the Kethmori kept their eyes moving, watching for threats. It occurred to him that these creatures were constantly alert in a way that humans simply weren't. "Marcus shared some of your observations about human behavior," Stevens began. "I'd like to understand your perspective better. What makes you think we're apex predators?" Thexhai's scales shifted to deep blue. "Lieutenant, may I ask how long your species has been spacefaring?" "About 50 years since first contact with galactic civilization," Stevens replied. "And in that time, how many unexplored planets have humans surveyed?" Stevens consulted her tablet. "I don't have exact figures, but somewhere around 3,000 systems." The Kethmori exchanged glances, their scales going pale. 3,000, Vexara repeated. "In 50 years, is that unusual?" Dr. Chen asked. "Most species explore perhaps a dozen new systems in their first century of space travel," Thexhai explained. "Exploration is dangerous. Unknown worlds contain unknown threats. Prudent species send robotic probes, conduct orbital surveys, perform extensive analysis before risking lives. We do that too," Thompson called out from across the camp. "But nothing beats actually walking around and seeing what's there." The alien scales went completely white. "You send living beings to personally investigate unknown worlds," Vexara said slowly. "As standard procedure." "Sure," Williams added. "How else would you get reliable data?" Thexhai turned to Marcus. "How many humans have died during these explorations?" Marcus looked to Stevens, who checked her records. "Overall casualty rate for Survey Corps operations is about 3%. Mostly accidents and equipment failures rather than hostile contact." 3%, Thexhai repeated. "Out of how many personnel?" "Current Survey Corps roster is roughly 200,000 active personnel," Stevens said. The silence that followed was profound. Marcus could practically see the aliens calculating the implications. Thousands of humans had died exploring unknown worlds, and humanity's response had been to send more humans to explore more worlds. "Your species," Vexara said carefully, "has suffered 6,000 casualties in the pursuit of exploration, and your response has been to expand the program?" "Well, yeah," Rodriguez said. "How else are we going to learn about the galaxy?" Thexhai's scales cycled through several colors before settling on deep purple. "Most species would consider 6,000 deaths an unacceptable loss and terminate such programs. Most species don't have replacement rates like humans," Dr. Chen pointed out. "We currently have about 9 billion people and a growing economy that needs new resources and opportunities. Exploration is an investment in our future." 9 billion, Vexara whispered. "How many humans are there total?" Current galactic population is around 9 billion on Earth, plus maybe 2 billion spread across our colonies, Stevens replied. Why? The Keth Mori were now rapidly cycling through color patterns that Marcus was learning indicated extreme distress. 11 billion humans, Thexai said, and you are actively expanding into new territories. That's the plan, Thompson confirmed cheerfully. Command wants to establish permanent colonies in 50 new systems over the next decade. Marcus watched the aliens process this information and saw genuine fear in their body language. To their minds, humans weren't just apex predators. They were apex predators with a massive population expansion drive and an exploratory behavior pattern that showed they weren't afraid of anything. Perhaps, Stevens said diplomatically, you could explain why this seems unusual to you. Thexai composed himself with visible effort. Lieutenant, the total population of our species is approximately 3 million individuals, spread across 2 star systems. This is considered large by galactic standards. Most sapient species number in the hundreds of thousands at most. Really? Dr. Chen looked fascinated. What about birth rates? Keth Mori reproduce every 7 to 10 years, Bexara explained. A mated pair might produce 2 or 3 offspring in a lifetime. This is normal for apex predators. Large populations would exhaust available resources. Humans reproduce every year or 2, Stevens said, and we've learned to create resources rather than just consuming them. The color patterns on the alien scales became increasingly frantic. Marcus realized they were witnessing something like a panic attack among creatures that had probably never experienced genuine terror before. Let me understand, Thexai said, his voice strained. Humans reproduce rapidly, expand aggressively, explore constantly, and have no apparent fear response. From our perspective, you are an invasive apex predator species, with a population expansion pattern that suggests unlimited resource requirements. When you put it that way, it sounds kind of scary, Williams admitted. It is beyond scary, Vexara said. It is the scenario that every other species in the galaxy has nightmares about. An apex predator with the population dynamics of a prey species and the territorial expansion of a plague organism. Stevens looked around at her team, then back at the aliens. But we're not aggressive. We're explorers, scientists, diplomats. You are scouts, Thexai corrected. Whether you realize it or not, everything you do looks like reconnaissance for a massive invasion. You map resources, catalog defenses, study weaknesses, and establish friendly relationships with local species that could become collaborators or assets. The humans fell silent as the implications sank in. Marcus could see his teammates processing this new perspective on their activities. Every survey mission, every diplomatic contact, every cultural exchange, all of it could be interpreted as preparation for conquest. No wonder the Galactic Council keeps restricting our activities, Rodriguez muttered. They're not trying to keep us down, they're trying to keep us contained. Dr. Chen leaned forward intently. How many other species know about this interpretation of human behavior? All of them, Vexara said simply. There are entire academic fields devoted to studying human expansion patterns and developing containment strategies. Containment strategies? Stevens's voice was sharp. Thexai's scales shifted to apologetic colors. Economic restrictions, territorial limitations, technology controls. The goal is to slow human expansion until other species can develop countermeasures. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Humanity had thought they were struggling to find acceptance in galactic society. In reality, the entire galaxy was actively working to prevent human expansion because they saw humanity as an existential threat. This changes everything, Stevens said quietly. We need to get this information back to Earth immediately. Yes, Thexai agreed. Because your species stands at a crossroads. You can continue your current path and eventually face open conflict with every other civilization in the galaxy. Or you can find a way to convince them that humans are not the threat they appear to be. Marcus looked around the camp one more time, seeing everything with new eyes. His teammates, his equipment, his mission. All of it suddenly looked very different when viewed through the lens of galactic politics. The question is, he said quietly, how do you prove you're not a monster when everything about you looks monstrous to everyone else? The emergency transmission to Earth Command took place at 600 hours. With the entire team gathered around the quantum communicator, Marcus watched Lieutenant Stevens prepare for what might be the most important conversation in human history. "Command, this is Survey Team 7 with Priority Alpha Intelligence," Stevens began. "We need immediate connection to the Diplomatic Corps and the Security Council." The response came back within minutes. "Survey 7, this is Admiral Harrison. We're routing you through to a secure conference with all department heads. What's the nature of your emergency?" Stevens looked at the Keth Mori, who had spent the night helping her prepare a comprehensive briefing. "Sir, we've discovered that humanity's position in galactic society is fundamentally different from what we believed. We are not seen as a minor species struggling for acceptance. We are seen as the most dangerous apex predator species in known space." The silence from Earth lasted so long that Marcus thought they had lost the connection. Finally, Admiral Harrison's voice came back, carefully controlled. "Explain." What followed was a 3-hour briefing that covered everything they had learned. The Keth Mori provided testimony about human behavior patterns, galactic containment strategies, and the fear that human expansion caused among other species. Dr. Chen presented her analysis of the biological and social factors that made humans appear terrifying to alien minds, and Marcus shared his own transformation from confused rookie to accidental nightmare fuel. When they finished, the response from Earth was swift and decisive. "Survey 7, maintain position and continue dialogue with the Keth Mori. We're sending a full diplomatic team to your location within 72 hours. Under no circumstances are you to share this information with any other alien species until further notice." "Understood, sir," Stevens replied. "But Admiral, we may have a larger problem. According to the Keth Mori, this planet serves as a testing ground for apex predators throughout the galaxy. Our presence here has effectively claimed it as human territory. Other species are going to notice when we're aware," came the grim reply. "Long-range sensors show 17 different alien fleets maintaining observation positions at the edge of this system. They're waiting to see what we do next." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "Waiting to see if we establish a colony? Or if we leave," Admiral Harrison confirmed. "Either choice sends a message about human intentions." Thexhai moved closer to the communicator. "Admiral Harrison, this is Thexhai of the Keth Mori Pack. May I speak directly?" After a brief pause, the Admiral's voice returned. "Go ahead, Thexhai." "Admiral, you must understand that from the galactic perspective, humans have already demonstrated their dominance of this world simply by surviving here. If you establish a permanent presence, it will be seen as a claim to the most dangerous territory in known space. If you withdraw, it will be seen as strategic deception, a sign that humans are confident enough to abandon valuable territory because they can take it back whenever they choose. What do you recommend?" Thexhai's scales shifted to thoughtful blue. "There is a third option, one that has never been attempted in galactic history, which is, share it." The suggestion caused another long silence from Earth. Marcus could imagine the frantic discussions taking place in conference rooms across the planet as humanity's leadership tried to process the implications. "Elaborate," Admiral Harrison finally said. "What if humans invited other species to establish research stations here?" Thexhai suggested. "Not as subjects or subordinates, but as equal partners. Demonstrate that human apex behavior includes cooperation rather than just domination." Dr. Chen's eyes lit up. "A joint research initiative. Share the planet's resources and scientific opportunities with multiple species." "But would other species accept?" Stevens asked. "If they're as afraid of us as you say." Vexera spoke up. "Fear, yes, but also curiosity. Every species in the galaxy has wondered what it would be like to study alongside humans. To observe apex predator behavior up close without being hunted." Marcus thought about the implications. "It would be like a nature documentary from inside the wolf pack." "Exactly," Thexhai confirmed. "Scientific collaboration could become a bridge between humans and the rest of the galaxy. Instead of seeing humans as invaders, other species might come to see them as protectors." The idea was revolutionary. Instead of humanity fighting for acceptance in galactic society, they could offer protection and partnership to species that had spent millennia fearing apex predators. Humans could become the guardians that others could trust precisely because they were too dangerous to be defeated. "Admiral." Harrison's voice returned with a new tone, one that Marcus recognized as the sound of a man who had just realized he was making history. Survey 7, New Mission Parameters. You are to coordinate with the Kethmori to develop a proposal for Joint Species Research Initiative. We're going to test this theory on a small scale before committing to anything larger. Sir, Stevens replied. What about the alien fleets watching the system? We'll be sending our own fleet, Admiral Harrison said. Not for conquest or intimidation, but as escorts for the diplomatic mission. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it properly. Over the following days, Marcus watched his teammates work alongside the Kethmori to design something completely unprecedented. They planned research stations that could accommodate multiple alien physiologies, safety protocols that would protect vulnerable species from the planet's dangers, and communication systems that would allow real-time collaboration between beings who had evolved on different worlds. The Kethmori proved to be enthusiastic partners. Their pack-hunting experience translated surprisingly well to project management, and their knowledge of galactic species helped identify which civilizations might be most interested in participating. The crystalline collective would be ideal for geological surveys, Vexara suggested during one planning session. Their silicon-based biology allows them to interface directly with mineral structures. And the Voidwalkers could handle the atmospheric research, added the blue-scaled Kethmori, whose name Marcus had learned was Zexthar. They thrive in low-oxygen environments that would kill most other species. Dr. Chen was in her element, designing research protocols that would take advantage of each species' unique capabilities. We're not just sharing the work, she explained to Marcus. We're creating research opportunities that could never exist with a single species approach. Marcus found himself taking on an unexpected role as a cultural translator. His experience as the rookie, who had discovered humanity's true galactic status, made him uniquely qualified to help both humans and aliens understand each other's perspectives. The key, he explained, to a group of human engineers who were struggling with alien safety requirements is to remember that they're not being overly cautious. They're operating from a completely different baseline of what constitutes danger. To them, humans casually walking around this planet is like watching someone juggle live grenades. By the time the diplomatic fleet arrived from Earth, Marcus and his team had created something remarkable, a comprehensive plan for the first truly cooperative interspecies research facility in galactic history. The proposal was ambitious, unprecedented, and absolutely terrifying to most of the alien species who were invited to participate, which, as Thexai pointed out, made it perfectly suited to humanity's new role in galactic society. You are asking species throughout the galaxy to trust you with their most valuable researchers, he observed as they reviewed the final proposal, to place their people under the protection of the beings they fear most. Are we crazy for suggesting this? Marcus asked. Thexai's scales shifted to what Marcus now knew was their version of a smile. Completely insane. Which is exactly what makes it so perfectly human, and exactly what might convince the galaxy that humans are something more than just apex predators. As Marcus watched the first alien research ships cautiously approaching the planet, he realized that his 43 days as a rookie had come to an end. Not because he had gained experience or proven himself in battle, but because he had helped discover something that would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. He was no longer just Marcus Chen, the rookie who got lost in the jungle. He was Marcus Chen, the human who helped teach the galaxy that apex predators could choose cooperation over conquest. And somehow, that felt like the most human thing of all. The future remained uncertain. There were still 17 alien fleets watching nervously from the edge of the system, and the success of the research initiative would depend on species that had spent millennia avoiding each other, learning to work together. But for the first time since humanity had joined galactic society, they were moving forward as partners rather than supplicants. Marcus smiled as he watched alien researchers tentatively exploring their new home, protected and guided by the species they had once feared most. It wasn't the career he had planned when he joined the Survey Corps, but it was exactly the kind of impossible challenge that humans seem to specialize in. After all, as Thexai had taught him, being terrifyingly good at the impossible was what made humans human.